Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot Country with the Weekly Comic Book Roundup. We've already covered this week's X-Men books as well as Spider-Man books. Now we're moving on to this week's Avengers titles as well as Cosmic Marvel. Starting with Avengers number 38. Where we left off, the Age of Khonshu had ended with the arrival of the Phoenix on Earth. But Khonshu was defeated in part by Mark Spector himself, empowered by the Phoenix Force. So we begin a few centuries ago when somewhere in the Kansas territory. A man by the name of Ambrose Randolph Winthrop and his family were traveling west. In the winter, they were at a crossroads. The ox died, or the mule died, and as soon as it fell over, it was already full of maggots. Couldn't be eaten. But Ambrose, while sitting at the crossroads, said that he would do anything for his family to survive this, to thrive, anything at all. And a snake, Mephisto, arrived and said that he's got a deal. All he had to do was kill his wife and children. It says simply that he ate well that night, and he would live to see his family grow strong, just not this family. In the present, Black Panther, basically, most of the Avengers, if it were up to them, they would see Moon Knight in Wakandan prison. But Panther has a proposal for Moon Knight. Join the Avengers full-time. Explaining that his efforts to bring about the Age of Khonshu may have been misguided, but Panther does respect Spectre's passion and commitment, not to mention his ability to single-handedly defeat the entire team. So he asks, hey, join us. Repair the damage you've done by making us stronger. And whatever Mephisto is planning, we'll stop him together. Moon Knight tells him to stick it. Claiming he tried to stop Mephisto, and he put his blood in the dirt and his soul on the line, and the Avengers chose to come down from their fancy mountain and stand in his way. So he's going back to where he belongs, to keep saving his crappy little corner of the world the only way he knows how, with his own two Khonshu-damned fists. As he swoops off, Moon Knight tells Black Panther that if Panther wants Mephisto's all his. And let's just hope that the Avengers are better at stopping Mephisto than they are at stopping Moon Knight. At Avengers Mountain, Tony's cursing a lot. The two captains, America and Marvel, ask him what's going on, and they've got bodies of the various Mephistos that Khonshu killed. One of whom looks a lot like he kind of walked off of a Iron Maiden cover. But I mean that in a good way. I seriously mean that in a good way. That one of them looks like Eddie. But Tony explains that every world, because these alternate reality Mephistos were trying to assassinate Khonshu, it seems that the plan that Mephisto has already started. He's got an army of hellspawn insurgents in a pan-dimensional war they didn't even know was being waged, one they're already losing. He goes on to explain that it'll only get worse. The Mephistos want to napalm whole realities. They want the stars possessed by devils. He's seen it. They're not just attacking them here. The whole timeline's infested with maggots, Mephisto's maggots. Sometimes he feels like they're feeding just underneath his skin, which actually kind of makes Carol a little worried about him. And Tony says that she should be worried about him. And she should be worried about every version of her that's ever existed. Or every version of him that's ever existed. And every version of her that's ever existed. And of all of them. And so Cap says, we're talking about time travel, alternate universes, and a self-proclaimed devil who's been plotting something going back to the Stone Age. And Iron Man says, no, it probably goes back even further than that. And so Cap asks Tony, what does Mephisto want? Iron Man simply says, what does the devil ever want? If I can't bend the heavens, then I'll raise some hell. And over the years, it turns out that Mephisto would always pay visits to the descendants of Ambrose Rudolph Winthrop. He traveled west alone. He found new wives, sired many new children, and forged more success than he ever imagined. He died a garishly wealthy man, but with a debt no earthly wealth could ever repay. And so, generally speaking, the debt was constantly repaid with fingers in flesh, in dark days of the night, and the firstborn children of each generation. Never did the Winthrops hunger, never were they cold, for year after year they thrived. All it cost them were a few fingers and infants. A fine deal by any measure. At Avengers Mountain, Ghost Rider, Iron Fist, and Doctor Strange are looking in on the Starbrand child. Yeah, the crib isn't really... The Starbrand baby can fly. So, yeah, it's hovering above the crib. Ghost Rider makes a point of asking if she knows what happened to the last Starbrand. The one that, Ghost Rider kind of, sort of, killed. Strange explains that the Starbrand has been reborn many times, going back centuries, as have the three of them. Their fates are intertwined in ways still yet to be revealed. Iron Fist brings up the Caveman Avengers thing and explains he's read every chapter of the book of the Iron Fist. There's nothing in there about any Stone Age defender of Kunlun. But there's an awful lot about the big fiery space bird that just came back to Earth. And most of it's bad. Speaking of the Phoenix, it seems to be sitting on a mountain near Avengers Mountain, being watched by Blade and Thor. Blade is fairly certain that it claims it's probably nesting. And Blade simply does eventually ask Thor, why haven't they killed the Phoenix yet? Thor doesn't really have much of an answer. We got, and so Blade continues saying, Panther's got the Hulk meeting Jen Walters, meeting with world leaders who want to bomb the hell out of this island, trying to talk him out of it. He supposes it's not to protect the space bird so much as to keep it from stop from making it angry. And he says if there's anything he's learned in all the years of cutting the heads off things that don't like to stay dead, is that everything bleeds. You just got to know where to cut. He also claims that Thor knows something. He can smell it. Thor's got some kind of connection to the Phoenix Force. And Thor explains that the Phoenix is here because it wants something, an avatar, a new vessel for its unbridled lust for cosmic destruction. What he knows from vast experience both in combat and other activities is that the Phoenix cannot be trusted, and they must never give the creature what it desires. So if it comes to it, then yes, Thor knows how to make the Phoenix bleed, and even if it kills him, and chances are, it would. We then flash back to the beginning of it all. The diseased Celestial arriving once again crashing on Earth, infecting the newly formed planet. perverting its natural evolution, making it the cesspool of mutation and radioactive grotesqueries that we know today. The Marvel Earth, not ours. And who was there to watch? In the form of a fly, laying the first of a billion maggots, but Mephisto. And this was always meant to be Mephisto's world. To have it, to hold it, but there grew a problem. And we see Mephisto manipulating various people over the eons. Young Thanos, who came to Earth apparently a million years ago. Apocalypse. Hulk. To young Thanos, he simply states, Thanos asks a skull with a centipede crawling out of it. Earth, I know this place, a minor mudball. What could possibly interest me there? To which Mephisto, the centipede, simply states, what you most desire. There's one thing the Earth will be good at. It's death. Apocalypse. Mephisto says, they mock you, these false gods. You want to forge this world in your own magnificent image, then you must be the first to fall. The Hulk, he simply says, you can never trust them. They will never leave you alone. And even in the future, as a space shark, he tells something we'll get to in a little while. Remember your true face. And so we see the caveman Avengers facing off against the young Thanos. I'd say teenage Thanos with a giant laser gun. We see Thor and another Sorcerer Supreme facing off against, as well as presumably under Starbrand and under Phoenix, facing off against Apocalypse during ancient Egypt. We see the Avengers as we properly know them, facing off against the Hulk. And in Earth's orbit, eons from now, we see Old Man Phoenix, an aged Wolverine with the Phoenix Force, and the daughters of Thor going up against Doom, the living planet. And one of the daughters of Thor is riding a space shark. Back in the present, most recent descendant, the great-great-grandson of Ambrose Randolph Winthrop is visited by Howard Stark and a hellhound. And so Oliver Winthrop is devoured by the hellhound. It's actually Mephisto. As is his family. And Howard Stark simply says to him, congratulations, you may consider your debt officially paid in full. Apparently Stark has a ledger, and the hellhound is a means of a hellhound, and people who owe large debts are a means to resurrect Mephisto. And the remaining Winthrops were just enough, will do for now. And Mephisto, as a hellhound, says they have much work to do. To which Stark replies, yes, my lord. Hail Mephisto. It's where the issue ends. I'll go and tell you now, the next issue is actually going to be another flashback issue telling the origin of the Phoenix of the Avengers of 1 million BC. Next up, we've got Black Widow number 3. Where we left off, Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff, had disappeared for 3 months until Hawkeye saw her in the background on television in San Francisco, and so him and the Winter Soldier went to investigate. Though it turns out she's been brainwashed and to living an idyllic life. An arcade, among others, is involved. So the issue begins Natalie and her fiance are in bed, and their son comes to bother them, interrupting what could have been a rather pleasant time. Outside, Hawkeye and Winter Soldier are trying to figure out what to do when they're interrupted by Yelena Belova, graduate of the Red Room, both enemy and ally to Natasha Romanoff. And it turns out she was the babysitter. But she states the obvious. This is we all know this is clearly a trap. But maybe it's one she chooses to be in. Perhaps she's buying her time for some reason that she doesn't know. Or maybe she designed it herself. The child is her. Stevie is her son. Yelena tested the DNA. He belongs to Natalia and James. There is no doubt. Which has Hawkeye suspicious because Stevie's like a year old. But Natasha's only been missing for like 3 months, 4 at most. Yelena doesn't know the answer on that one. But she explains that she'll keep watch, and if things change, she'll contact them. And through the convincing of Winter Soldier, Hawkeye agrees. In San Francisco, at a bridal shop, Natalie is looking at dresses, and Helen, the babysitter, comes upon her, and they talk a bit. And Natalie explains that her life's perfect, absolutely perfect, more perfect than it realistically should be. And she says sometimes she catches this flutter of something, and it's like there's another her trapped inside, and she's always screaming. And she said, Natalie figures she knows exactly what it is. It's that damn little voice that always tells you aren't good enough, that you can't get what you want because nobody does, not really, and you don't deserve good things. And so she decides that that's nonsense, and she's everything she always wanted, and she'll be damned if she wastes 1 second of it. And so we meet the various masterminds behind all of this. Viper, aka Madam Hydra. Arcade, obviously. Weeping Lion 2.0. The Red Guardian. And Snapdragon. And apparently they were never supposed to meet together. The Weeping Lion says things change. Snapdragon insists because Arcade's a moron. Red Guardian agrees. Weeping Lion explains that it's not Arcade's fault. They're the ones who forced the meeting. As it's finally time to kill Black Widow. They'd toyed with her long enough, brought her to the absolute pinnacle of happiness, so that they would rip her away in the most brutal fashion possible. And Weeping Lion thought they would all like to see it up close and personal. They didn't. They just wanted her off the playing field. Weeping Lion tells Viper that, you wanted Black Widow gone, so do the rest of us. But Viper says, yeah, but she's not an idiot. She's got big things coming. She just wants Widow off the board. And, people have tried to kill Black Widow for years. Decades. Literal decades. It's one of the most impossible things to do. She may as well have 1,000 lives. They went to considerable trouble and expense to trap her in her own personal matrix, and it worked. She's been happy that she's been out of the game for months, and now Weeping Lion wants to throw that away so they can get revenge. Explaining, Weeping Lion, apparently 2 cousins were killed by the Widow, and now they're something else combined into one. And he is the voice of dissent here. There's a plan, they all signed on for it, but yeah. But, yeah, he's already put his plan in motion. Weeping Lion's already put their plan in motion. And Viper figures that doing this pretty much killed all of them. So Natalie arrives home, but something's wrong. She faces off against some of Weeping Lion's henchmen, or one of Weeping Lion's henchmen. Two of Weeping Lion's henchmen. Uses the homemade bomb she made. Realizes that she knows Russian. Takes out more henchmen. But something goes off in her neck when she rescues James and Stevie. It's possible that what went off actually re-triggered all of her memories. And Viper, back in the control room, Viper says that Weeping Lion better hope the process kills Natasha. Otherwise, Viper won't have to kill Weeping Lion because she'll do it herself. And that's where the issue ends. Which brings us to Captain Marvel number 23. Where we left off in Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers had somehow ended up in an alternate future. The alternate future from Captain Marvel: The End. After the events of the one-shot. So you have younger Captain Marvel back on Earth that older Captain Marvel just sacrificed herself to save. And the big bad villain that has been, that caused a lot of trouble on the planet, he sent Luke Cage as an emissary. But it's Luke Cage's body, not Luke Cage himself. So Carol said after he makes his proclamation and leaves, Carol has War Machine's daughter turn invisible and go after him. We also get a good look at everyone who's present. We've got Danny Cage, who has strength and vulnerability in fight, an older version of Hazmat, Phantom X5, Molly Hayes of the Runaways, Sora, aka the Wolf, Irene LeBeau, aka Rogue, who has the abilities of both of her parents, Katie Barton, sharpshooter like her father and her name, as well as her namesake, Jerry Drew, aka the Spider, has his mother's abilities, Johnny Watts, aka Fuse, density manipulation, Elf Themister, aka Negasonic, blows stuff up, and Jeff the Land Shark is a shark, has teeth, maybe indestructible, though Jeff has apparently lost an eye in all of this. So I don't say he's indestructible, but at least very hardy. I would say that probably comes from living on Monster Island. And Emma gets brought along. Carol insists that Danny Cage stay home because she's not objective. And but then Emma takes her to meet Bridget, Thor's daughter, who's not interested in going along. The next morning, they all get ready to go, and Bridget shows up, just as Carol figured she would. They make their walk, and Carol learns about what happened. 2 back-to-back wars, a lot of heroes dead. Between the 2 wars, though, there were heroes, new people, kids were born. Kate Bishop died during the first war, however, and she explains that they lost so many during the first one. Most of the Avengers, the X-Men, the Inhumans, the FF, Guardians, Champions, Runaways, so many. He's pretty sure he thinks that when they saw Thor killed, they knew they were truly lost. They didn't know where it all came from. 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 They didn't know where it all c And someone pushed the button, of course, and yeah, there were some heroes that did what they could to protect what was left. Magneto died building the underground where they still live today. Spider-Woman looked for resources and survivors. Armor spent a year armored, which almost killed her. Hazmat absorbed redirected radiation, directing pockets on the surface where people were the most resilient could live for a time. Then Carol showed up, reignited the. They realized the sun was dying. Carol showed up, reignited the sun. Yeah, and now here's Carol back. But Carol from the present explained, apologizes that she wasn't here earlier, and Fuchs says, hey, don't be. If you had been, you might have died like all the others, and their fates would have been sealed. And so Carol asks, why wasn't I here? Apparently Abigail Brand mentioned something to Emma once about an unexpected wormhole, but Emma didn't press her. And then something attacks Bridget, they fight it off, and after they fight it off, Carol kind of notes that there's something familiar about it. She can't quite put her finger on it. She asks Rhodes' daughter to go invisible again, and she asks Emma why Emma is still in her diamond form. She's saying, the diamond form protects me, but Carol says, no, that's not it. Katie Barton's fine. Rhodes is fine, she's not armored up. And when we find out who the big villain is, who OVE truly is. Apparently, it's Namor. And he welcomes the gathered group to Paradise on Earth, better known as New Atlantis. And that is where the issue ends. So yeah, kind of a misnomer of a cover, and to be fair, they should have put Namor there. Cool looking cover though, I will say. Next up we got Thor, number 9. Where we left off, something strange is happening with Mjolnir. It's getting heavier to Thor, and it seems anyone can pick it. It's easier for others to pick up though. So first we learn a bit about the relationship between Odin and Thor and the Midgard serpent, Jormungand. Apparently to teach, and Odin created a shadow for Thor to teach him humility and how to be a good man. That shadow being named Dr. Donald Blake. Donald could slam his cane into his walking stick into the ground and suddenly be replaced by Thor. When he would do this, he goes nowhere. It's explained. An eternal, unchanging unplace of Odin's making. While Thor rages above against titans and anti-gods, Dr. Donald Blake awakens mid-stride in a small town of peace and tranquility. And though he walks with his trusty cane, he feels no pain, nor sorrow, nor sadness in this beautiful summer land. And it goes on and on and on. So we begin in the present with Thor and Jotunheim talking to Loki, the king of Jotunheim. The basic gist of it is, as Loki puts it, Thor needs Loki to lie for him. But but Thor explains that he needs a day to not be king, to find his way, and so that he may be a better one. And but Loki explains he's renounced the title of the god of lies. He's the god of myths, of stories. And he's trying like hell to write a new and better one for himself. However, he can still smell a lie from across the stars. and he, something is wrong. Something bigger is going on. Tell me what it is, and I'll help you. And with that, Loki tosses Mjolnir at Thor, hitting him squarely. And we also find out where Thor goes when he and Donald Blake swap places, and Donald Blake comes back to the land of mortal men. Thor goes to the Elder's Sleep, where you can commune with the spirits and the old dead kings. And yes, anyone can pick up Mjolnir. The ancient Asgardian magics are coming apart at the seams. Someone or something is destroying destiny, and Thor wants answers. And of course, Thor wants Loki to babysit Dr. Blake. In part because Loki wants these answers as well. And also, Thor's one hell of a absurdly large favor that he looks forward to Thor regretting in the future. And Thor triggers the swap, ends up in the Elder's Sleep. And almost immediately, he knows something has gone horribly wrong. The Elder Spirits, the Ancient Kings, they turn their eyes from Thor. Not in anger or disappointment, but in dread, in shame, in guilt. For they know that the Thunder King is what he's about to see, and his burden, the burden he's about to carry, and his shadowed cross, but they themselves could not stop. And Thor ends up in the no place that Donald Blake goes, and finds everyone dead. Various sayings are written on the ground and on the walls in blood. Why am I awake? Is this hell? Thor, where are you? And so forth. Apparently, though, in a long, long time since Thor last summoned forth Donald Blake, Donald Blake has gone quite mad. He's dissected the people and examined the people near him. But he finally received answers. The place he is in heaven. It's a prison. However, the gates have now been unleashed. The serpent got to the bird. The sun was trapped by the shadow. And now the Midgard serpent lies dead in this no place. And Donald Blake appears holding his staff in one hand in front of Loki, holding his walking stick in one hand and a scalpel in the other. Loki and Blake fight it out. And Blake explained he will never be refuge to a god again. From now on, none of them will have a place to hide from him. Saying he is no Thor, as he snaps his walking stick over his knee, adding that he never will be again. And that is where the issue ends. Which brings us to our next book this week. John Walker, USAgent, #1. For those unaware, USAgent was a replacement Captain America in the 80s. 80s real-time, 5 or so years ago comic time. Cap disagreed with some directives from the government, and so stepped down as Cap. And USAgent John Walker. Well, John Walker was then trained to replace Cap. He would go on to join the Avengers, both and eventually he gave up the when Steve Rogers reclaimed the mantle of Cap. John Walker donned the outfit that Steve wore. Well, he had been wearing while calling himself simply the Captain, and he dubbed himself USAgent. He generally worked for the government. He's a jerk, but yeah, he still can be a hero. So yeah, we begin learning about the background of a small town. He's from West Virginia. And one day, USAgent drove on through. Turns out they were people in town. It was a mining town. And the company that owned the mine, once the mine dried up, they skipped town. A new company showed up called Virago. Built themselves a massive online distribution hub. Everyone's thinking, oh, something like this? That's jobs for the town. Construction, new hires. Yeah, they brought their own construction. Their own workers. Independent power plant, tax exempt. Didn't give anything back to the community. Didn't even buy groceries. Yeah, apparently USAgent mucked it up, and yeah. They blew up the power plant, so he looked into it. Well, beforehand, agent gets sent out, gets activated to deal with the destruction of the power plant. Elsewhere, he's ordering pizzas, inspecting them in New York, Mount Vernon, New York, and constantly chucking the delivery boys down into the basement. Last one shows up, older Oriental guy. Well, turns out they're both packing. No bomb. Missing slice though. And yeah, apparently the old Oriental guy gets the drop on Walker. He was a non-malicious. He's not maliciously racist. You know, kind of, he does respect people of other races, but he's also not he's not above being a jerk to them and calling out racial stereotypes. But so yeah, they get to talking, explain what's happening. Yeah, someone is planning to come up with a bomb, hide a bomb in a pizza, but yeah. So far, it's been none of the pizza guys. And when the neighborhood kids show up, John has a flashback to dealing with his sister. And so him and Maury, his new friend, are heading towards Manhattan in a multi-terrain vehicle. But at another Virago location, they get attacked. Also, it turns out that Virago is a shield front company. But they get attacked. Their vehicle gets sent with a tractor beam. Agent and Maury hop out on a motorcycle. Security goes after them. And it turns out the leader of the security contingent is none other than John's sister, Katie Walker. And that is where the issue ends. Which brings us to our last comic for the video. Guardians of the Galaxy, number 8. Where we left off, in the middle of post-Empire peace talks, New member of the Guardians, Marvel Boy, who was framed for multiple counts of murder at the peace talks. Bear in mind, Marvel Boy is the delegate for the Utopian Kree faction, who were part of the recently wrapped up Kree Civil War, which was wrapped up by new Kree Emperor Hulkling. Part of his, price for the price he asked for taking the throne of the Kree Skrull Alliance was, okay, immediate end of hostilities with Utopian Kree, and we work towards peace. And so the Guardians have shown up, including an already very drunk Rocket Raccoon, who's here to investigate the whole thing. So, explain that with the first murder, the Xenarc's Emperor, Stoat, his heirs are already feeling the telepathic itch in their skulls across the universe, the drive to claim the vacated Alpha position. Snark War has begun, Super Skrull explains. War of succession by any means necessary, whatever weapons they can find, buy, or steal. Do you think Kree Skrull weapons need to be inspected? When the war urge hits them, the Xenarcs make the Kree and Skrull look restrained. As the conflict grows, it will consume all in its way. Nowhere will be safe. Basically, Super Skrull accuses Marvel Boy of lighting the fire that will end the lives of trillions of lives, not just taking one life. But he still maintains his innocence. Then, of course, comes the fact that Valor was murdered by his own gun. And so, Oracle 2 suggests a telepathic scan, which would to confirm Novar's story, though Super Skrull says that would also, there's a lot of things it could also do, like trigger or metal booby traps, post-hypnotic cover story, so on and so forth. So, yeah. So, Rocket hands Super Skrull the gun, says fire the floor. Let's make sure it works. Works fine. Okay, fine. If you would then, shoot Novar in the head, Marvel Boy. And so Super Skrull's like, okay, fine. As he does, the gun flips its barrel, and Super Skrull ends up shooting himself through the eye. To which Rocket says, good thing Super Skrull's a shapeshifter who doesn't keep his brain in the obvious place. Rocket explains that the targeting array on the weapon was too big. Had to be a gene scanner. If it's aimed at a Kree, it takes out the user. And so the question, okay, why? War. Valor hated Marvel Boy. Shooting Novar somewhere private was always a possibility. But an Imperial Kree killing a Utopian wouldn't restart the Civil War, not with Hulkling leading the Imperials. The other way around, that might. Or it puts Hulkling under pressure, maybe pulls him off that throne sooner, back to business as usual. Which he thinks is the motive. And so he says, so Rocket, someone wants the conference to fail, someone wants to destabilize the galactic peace process, and he ran a check on the all-robot staff, all firewalls intact, no hacking, tampering, or nothing, so one of them couldn't have done it. So one of the delegates is the murderer. No one leaves the room. Oracle 2 and Mentacle are asked to do mental scans, with Moondragon doing scans of them as well. And yeah, they're not picking up anything. So they start looking for general thoughts of murder, and they find one in Peacebringer, the Chitauri representative. He offers the delegates peace. It was not his intention to reveal his method of peace before it was fully primed, and he apologizes for the delay, so please wait quietly. He has to please wait quietly. Explaining Peacebringer didn't kill Stoat. But he does intend to detonate sometime in the next 2 minutes to bring peace to the others. And then Rocket figures out that the Badoon representative, Lonnie Koako, is not who she claims to be, while the rest of the Guardians try and subdue Peacebringer. And but Rocket further explains that, he knows she's not Badoon, and she's using a very, very clever image inducer. Badoon are isolationists. Most likely, they threw the invitation away, presuming they got it. And yeah, she killed Stoat. First order of business, start the Snark War, because the Snark War is a weapons market. And whoever is posing as the Badoon makes the weapons. But Rocket realized that wasn't it wasn't. But the thing that was tripping him up for a while was, when did the not Badoon swap out Valor's sidearm? When did she get the chance? Then he realized he was thinking too small. She didn't have to swap it. She built it. She supplied it to this Kree-Skrull alliance. In fact, Rocket even bets that if he looks, there's a few unexplained killings of Alliance troopers on the Utopian Kree border. Valor's gun was rigged, but it wasn't special. All the Kree guns you sold do that. And so she is revealed to be none other than the Profiteer. And yeah, that Profiteer, as from the very beginning, the prologue and epilogue of Empire. And Rocket flat out says that Profiteer might be the all-out worst person he's ever met in his whole life. No offense, which, none taken. During the fight against Peacebringer, however, Zeral Scoopa has to take a call. A call about the end of everything. And he explains that 17 units ago, local time, the planet Silnius, his homeworld, went dark. All communication ceased. 4 units ago, it was confirmed. His world is dead, and he was not alone. There are others, swaths of planets, stripped of life in moments. Across the rim worlds, the Shi'ar and Kree-Skrull space, even along the Zinrix colonies. The scale is unimaginable, as is the cost. And he makes a point of bringing up the cost to get Profiteer's attention. And because he knows that to Profiteer, lives lost are meaningless. But after the total devaluation of the credit, the galactic economy is fragile. What's happening will bankrupt it. And if there is war, it won't be fought with her weapons because they can no longer afford them. There's no profit to be made there. So she decides to let everyone live. But she is taking Peacebringer with her. And hey, at least she does get the Snark War, and she is taking the fascinating biobomb. So, And, so Super Skrull asks, how were you able to convince her you were telling the truth? And Goop explains, because he was telling the truth. Something is destroying worlds, consuming them, leaving only husks. But not like Galactus. Explaining that Galactus took no joy in what he did. This is something darker, something that's delighting in what it does. It was a transmission from Goopa's homeworld before it died, a final scream. They know the creature's name. Null. That's right, the Guardians will be involved in King in Black. And that's it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying, live long and rock hard.